Hi class, this first video is about Colorado's climate, and it's in answer to a question that was asked by one of you about why it is that the Front Range of Colorado, or the eastern slope, gets more precipitation than the Grand Valley. She thought that seemed a little counterintuitive because it should be in the rain shadow, and I think that's a great question, and I'm really glad because it got me thinking about talking a little bit more about air masses, which is what Chapter 8 was about. So if we look at the North American continent and the air masses that affect the North American continent during the winter, we can see that the western part of the state of Colorado, which Colorado is about here on the North American continent, straddling the Rocky Mountains, the western part of the state is going to be affected by air masses moving in off of the Pacific. The problem is, though, is that the precipitation all gets dropped, the moisture gets dropped in the mountain ranges along the coast. And so by the time that air makes it to us in western Colorado, it's pretty dry. It does still have some moisture left in it, which then will precipitate as those air masses get pushed up again by the Rocky Mountains, and that's why we see increased precipitation in the higher elevations. Now, on the eastern plains, the eastern side of the Rockies, that area is more affected by these continental polar air coming down from Canada and maritime tropical air masses moving up from the Gulf of Mexico. In the winter, when those collide, we get blizzards. And so that's responsible for a lot of the precipitation that the eastern plains get in the winter. Now, in the summer, we have a lot of moisture coming up from the Gulf of Mexico, and that's where the summertime moisture comes from. So again, the Pacific air masses, by the time they reach Colorado, are pretty dry, but when they do get pushed up by the Rocky Mountains, they will precipitate. But the Grand Valley is not high enough elevation to produce enough orographic uplift to create more precipitation. So the resulting precipitation pattern, this is annual precipitation for the North American continent. You can see that increased precipitation on the western coastline where the coastal ranges are, as those air masses move in off of the Pacific, get pushed up in elevation, and create precipitation. And then you can see the pattern on the eastern side of North America as these air masses move in off of the Gulf of Mexico, and we see increased precipitation as those air masses move in. As they move across the continent, they drop moisture, they drop precipitation, so the moisture content decreases, and so by the time it gets to Colorado, it doesn't have quite as much moisture, but we will see more precipitation on the eastern side of the state than on the western side. And then if we look at annual precipitation for the entire state, here's the Grand Valley, the dark orange area here, and here in Grand Junction we get about 9 inches of rain a year, and over here on the eastern side of the state they're getting more like 15 inches of rain per year. So we see increased precipitation here because the source of the moisture is from the Gulf of Mexico, and over on the western part of the state it's a little drier because that moisture from the Pacific has fallen already as those air masses are moving across the continent. And then as the air masses get pushed up, we do see increased precipitation in the mountainous regions of the state. This little finger here of lower annual precipitation is the San Luis Valley. This is the Rio Grande flowing south into the state of New Mexico. So I hope that helps explain the precipitation patterns in the state of Colorado. Let me know if you have any questions.